What's up, chumps? I am Jay Enterprise. It is movie review time again. Now, I am by no means a professional critic. Just someone who loves movies and loves talking about them. There's going to be no star ratings or letter grades coming from me. See it for yourself. Be your own judge. Today, the conclusion of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. 2012's The Dark Knight Rises. Our bat reviews / discussions has led us to
Number 3 of Nolan.
one of the most divisive movies, The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
You love this movie.
I love this movie. I mean, yeah, if you're going to compare it to Dark Knight's the best, my favorite. But I walked out of Dark Knight Rises like, holy shit, that was good. I'm also a huge Bane fan. I think Bane's an unbelievable villain. I spent an upwards of $300 on a replica coat. Been him for Halloween.
That's a true fan right there.
I might have wrestled as him. Motherfucker!
No, we'll use that, bro. You were just talking about being Bane for Halloween.
Yeah, it was Bane for
We're back.
We're back! It was Bane for Halloween. I may have a cat named Bane. I do.
And what are the deformities on this cat?
He's got 3 legs. He's FIV+, which means he has AIDS. But
Train wreck.
I'm an animal lover. But however, if he can give it to other cats, so that's good.
Oh,
Unless
okay.
he.
I didn't realize we were still on this.
Yeah, no, we're gonna
feline AIDS
We're talking about FIV
thing.
for a second. If you want to adopt an FIV cat, they can't transmit it to you or another animal in the house. Only another cat with a deep bite wound or a scratch, because it's a DNA
I
mixture.
feel like Sarah McLachlan should be like behind us.
She should be. But yeah, no, I love this movie. I think just I love what they did with Bane. They changed it up. I love how they bring the trilogy together and they go back to number 1 and they loop everything back to essentially his origins. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, Tim Blake, I think it was, or something like that. Jonathan Blake, I don't remember. But I like how they just tied everything together in this film. You even get Talia al Ghul as a surprise.
That was the big surprise of the film.
That you don't really see coming unless you saw pictures from the set where for some reason the actress whose name escapes me is wearing interesting garb, which if you look, you're like, oh, I think that's Talia.
Oh, yeah.
Again, the villain in this movie, Bane, like another villain. I mean, you didn't get this with Joker, and you kind of got it with Ra's because they explained his backstory with his wife, and but then you kind of moved on from Ra's until the end. In this movie, this is the one that explores, I think, the villain the most, because you do get Bane's backstory eventually, but you kind of realize again he's just carrying out somebody else's mission. Not that makes it any better, but he's carrying out this mission, and then you hear his backstory, and he, again, he's in this prison. He saves Talia's life as a kid. He gets destroyed. He eventually gets rescued by Ra's. And just like Talia says, his only, her father's only issue with him was that he loved her. Like he was essentially, you can say like a good guy, originally, not as Bane, but like at first, he looked over like a young Talia.
They kept referring to him as the protector.
The protector, that's what he was. Granted, he was in a prison, so he was there for a reason. But like he even had, at one point you see him with tears in his eyes at the end. You don't know if he's crying or
that's
if it's just
because she friend-zoned him.
Right.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've only seen this movie twice leading up to my preparation for these reviews.
I've only saw it 4 times in theaters.
Well, excuse me. I saw it opening night, and then I saw it again when it came out on DVD, and then I saw it finally again for the first time in years, earlier this month. It's not as bad as I originally thought it was. I wasn't as disappointed in it going back. There's still a lot of the movie that I have problems with. The acting is phenomenal. Anne Hathaway, I remember being in theaters and the first couple scenes with her feeling disappointed because she was just being Anne Hathaway. Mm-hmm. Especially when she's nosing around up in the upstairs and Bruce catches her with the necklace on, and she turns around and she's completely in Anne Hathaway mode. And I remember thinking, oh, she's totally being every character she's played in the past.
Oh, so you actually like that scene.
And then almost like with the flick of the switch, she goes like full blown Selena Kyle. I think the line is like, oops, nobody told me it was unbreakable.
Oops.
Yeah. Like at that moment she like goes from Anne Hathaway to Selena Kyle, and I was like, okay, we'll be good. That was awesome. I remember that.
The whole thing, even kicking his cane out.
Yeah.
Backflipping out the window. And then she gets into the car with the senator, I think, or mayor. And then even like the scene after that where there's a shootout and the cops come in. I know we're jumping ahead. And she's screaming.
Yeah.
But then the second they leave, she just turns her head and she's out. Like,
let's talk about Michael Caine.
Yeah.
He doesn't do as much in this film as the other two in the trilogy, but my God, every single scene that they give him is like an emotional powerhouse. He's arguing, he's emotional, he's overcome with so many feelings, anger, terror, regret. The final scene, one of the final scenes you see him in, he's weeping over the graves, apologizing to Thomas and Martha that he failed them. Every single time Michael Caine is on screen in this movie, he delivers an Oscar-worthy performance. We talked about Batman Forever, where there's a completely pointless scene with Alfred and Dick Grayson doing laundry. You want to talk about scenes that count and that actually mean something. Every time Michael Caine is on screen, it is such an emotionally powerful scene and a great performance. Maybe an Oscar snub.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, again, I guess that has to do with, he doesn't essentially have a big role in this film. So what do you call him, the best supporting actor? I mean,
it would be
it's tough because at the same time he's only in like 6.
And it's such a strong cast. And by this time, I mean, this is 2012. By this time, Christopher Nolan has a very established cast of characters that he's using for his films. You have Tom Hardy, you have Marion Cotillard. You have
Cillian Murphy,
which is a huge surprise. Being thrilled, I remember in theaters seeing him. Even if it was a quick little cameo.
Pops up in one scene.
It was phenomenal.
Same as Dark Knight. You see him in one scene.
Yeah, one scene at the very
beginning. There's just that mini continuity. You'll get a little bit of Scarecrow.
Yeah, you have Michael Caine. You got Christian Bale. These are well-seasoned actors working with a director they've worked with before, and not just Batman films.
Right.
It's a well-oiled machine at this point. So the things that I have a problem with, and feel free to throw out a rebuttal. First of all, I didn't like the evolution of the Bat costume throughout the trilogy. My favorite version of the outfit was from Batman Begins, mostly because of the shape of the cowl. The cape was very flowing. I like how, I like in the comics, the cape's really big. It's always flowing over Batman. It has a life of its own. In Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, it becomes almost just like a drape. It doesn't even go over the shoulders. This is all very nitpicky.
Yeah.
But I don't like the whole armor look of Batman and the shape that it kind of gave his head and his neck, because we're so used to seeing that iconic silhouette of like the ears and the thick neck and then the shoulders, and you didn't get that. Once again, very nitpicky. Also, one of the biggest things, and this is most of these things, these are all complaints that I had about the movie going back to when I was first watching it on opening night. As the movie was unfolding in front of my eyes, like I was getting more and more disappointed and more taken out of the film because I was noticing things. And one of them was the look of Gotham. Now, I don't know what the story was behind it. I don't know if they ran out of budget or whatever. And you even touched on it. The look of Gotham, which was essentially a miniature set that they created for Batman Begins. They created an entire city with the Narrows, and everything looks so dark and so grim. They even have the underground portion of the city, the railway system, which is a major part of the final act. Wayne Tower, which Bruce's dad even says that's the central part of the city. You never see Wayne Tower again, although you might get a glimpse of it during the truck scene in Dark Knight, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not.
And Wayne Tower in that scene, Batman Begins, was for the scene.
Yeah, it was, but at least keep the continuity going. Like, they created Gotham for Batman Begins. Dark Knight, you still get a feel for it being a different city. Dark Knight Rises, it's obviously New York. Like, they didn't put put in any effort to disguise, oh, there's the Freedom Tower, there's the Empire State Building, Brooklyn Bridge, and there are several scenes where there's actually a good number of scenes where there's aerial shots of the entire city, and it's clearly New York.
I didn't see the statue. You saw the Empire State Building?
Empire State Building, Empire State Building, One World Trade Center, Chrysler Building.
Yeah.
Like you see them, the United Nations Building. Like they didn't do anything to cover that up. Another issue I had that stuck with me is I understand why they did it, and what I'm talking about is the bat signal on the bridge in fire to announce he's back. From a storytelling perspective, from a Hollywood perspective, obviously that is an amazing visual. It's really cool. But when you really think about it, like this bomb is going off in several hours. Time is of the essence. You know, why would Batman spend hours just to put his logo? Like, hey guys, I'm here. Is it like to inspire hope or to like instill fear?
I think it's just a move where, first of all, I think Batman realizes the bomb's going off, and he's like,
I have time for this.
I got time.
Let me see if.
And it's this. Who knows? It could throw Bane off as well. But at the same time, I think it's like if something really. It's weird to equate to real life, but like if something really bad happens, and then people suddenly take pride in like their flag.
Okay.
It's like he puts that up there, like I'm here. You know what I mean? It's also fuck you to Bane. Like here I am, and like your shit's about to change.
That makes sense.
It's kind of like a. Something to give hope again. And that's what Batman is.
Okay.
Is especially going to the third movie, Gotham's lost hope because there's no Harvey Dent. There's no Batman. So it could be one of those things. I think it's more of a symbol of hope and just like a fuck you to Bane.
That's a good point.
It goes back to the scene too where people go, how did he end up on the bridge that Selena Kyle was on towards the end? That's what Batman does. Yeah. Jim Gordon turns around and Batman's there and then he's gone. So Bruce Wayne it's the same person.
Yep.
So he's not in the suit. He's also in broad daylight, so he's not going to be in the suit.
Yep.
So he can just appear, and that's what he would do as Batman. So little things like that people overlook. It's like, remember who you're talking about. I like the suit. They even cover why it's not one piece anymore. Because Morgan Freeman's like, you can turn your head now.
Which was a jab at
the
Keaton suit.
Yeah, everything. But I like that this movie even covers little things like, or the trilogy covered like, all right, you can get shot, but you can't take a knife wound.
Yeah, and then eventually.
Right, which they parlay at one scene to a cat scratcher or something like that, like a cat scratching at you. But I like it because, again, they're sticking with the continuity of, all right, Batman Begins, we've said he's basically a trained ninja.
Yeah. So
we don't want to get too crazy with the theatrics, which even in one scene, Liam Neeson's like, oh, I see you've taken my... advice for the theatrics a little too seriously.
Yeah.
So I like that. All right, we got the symbol. Everything else is about can he move, be breathable, and get the job done. Is he in a big bulky rubber suit?
Okay.
Like everything's about performance, and Batman can't be held back by, his own suit.
Also, with the bat suit, the way the cowl is shaped, Christian Bale already has like a very natural, like a pouty lip kind of look.
Yeah.
And he's like a mouth breather. He has his mouth open a lot. And the way the cowl is shaped, it kind of like presses in.
Right.
Even like there's this one scene, and this happened when I was watching it in theaters, and it threw me off. It's when Talia is dying. It's a very dramatic scene, and she's, explaining the plan. She's about to die. Bruce was in love with her. And, she's slumped over in the truck, and then they shoot to Gordon, Kyle, and Batman. And... Bale has this look on his face, like his head is tilted, and he's got like that look, and it like totally takes you. It's just the goofiest look on his face.
Take me out because I didn't even notice it.
Took me out. He's. I may be exaggerating, but I just remember in theaters being like, that. It was funny.
I'd have to go.
He's just like dumb look on his face.
Yeah. No, I didn't have an issue with these things. I took it for, again, it was another explanation. Why does the suit look all military? It was a military suit. They actually said in the beginning the suit was never used in the military. Yeah. Same reason why there's no logos on the the Batmobile. It's, or the Bat Pod. It's basically just, this was used, meant for the military.
They're all prototypes.
It's like, oh, how do you get this made? Nobody knew about it. It's like he just basically took them because the right guy had them.
There's some continuity issues with the stadium scene, which is an awesome scene, by the way. But the crowd fluctuates. If you go back and watch that scene,
I think it's an overhead shot.
Depending on the angles, sometimes the stadium looks really full, and sometimes it's patchy, and sometimes it looks empty.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of consistency with are the seats full or are they not full? That's just editing and
little things
continuity issues,
and nothing that takes me out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Easter eggs in this film. There's a very deliberate R written out the way that usually the Robin R is, being held up as part of a sign.
When is that?
It's right in your face. When they pan during the crowd and while they're watching the Gotham Knights. And somebody's got like their, I think they're supposed to have letters up, but somebody puts one down.
Okay.
An R, and it is in your face. It is
Robin
the R. Even the fact that Hines Ward was running that touchdown in, and he turns around, you see Ward, and the number, which is escaping me, had significance to Burt Ward, I believe it was, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I go back and check it out. I'm butchering this because I've read this before and it's escaped my mind a little bit. But again, Ward, he's running it. There were Easter eggs because essentially you do kind of get a Robin-ish character out of it with Joseph Gordon-Levitt too, and I loved his evolution. They showed him he's got detective skills. His reaction to the gun, little things like that. When he shoots, ricochets, and it kills a guy, he looks at the gun and he drops it. You could tell there's something with him and the guns that don't click very well. He's a rebel too. He's his own man.
I really had a problem with Gordon-Levitt's character knowing who Batman was.
Yeah.
Like, Bruce has spent his entire career hiding his identity, and that's a huge part of the Batman lore. Nobody knows, very select few knows the true identity of Batman.
Right.
And he does a very good job of hiding that identity. And you're telling me this kid knows he's Batman just because he's an orphan too?
I think
I saw that look in your eye, you must be Batman. So does that mean like every orphan in the world can identify Bruce Wayne as Batman? Like it's such a bullshit explanation.
I get that, but I guess there's a couple trains of thought. I was like, how else would he figure it out? Because why would Bruce at one point trust a cop, let's say, like, oh, by the way, I'm Batman?
Did he need to know he's Batman though? Think about it.
I think...
Would it have affected the story that much? Minus the ending of him getting into the
I do think he needs to know because it helped him, I think, understand where Bruce is coming from. Like, that was the whole point of the scene. Is, in a way, it's stupid to me, but at the same time, I look at it as in, okay, that's why he is going to be the next Batman. Some people say Robin, I disagree. I think he becomes the next Batman.
I think that was more of just an Easter egg.
Because Bruce walks away, and the Robin Easter egg, that was nothing more. He becomes Batman because Bruce starts to give him advice, essentially, why he wears the mask and blah, blah, blah. But I think that's why he becomes, Batman or Robin, whatever you want to call it, is because there is nobody else who would put that together. That's why, there was something special about Bruce as a kid. That's why it's there was something special about Jonathan Blake, or his name's escaping me, him as a kid. It's because nobody, and that's why, it puts in Bruce's head maybe there's something special about him because nobody would figure this out. That's what separates him, and that's why he can pass on the mantle, is because it's almost like, whoa, this kid can do it, And Robin, when you look back, again, we're doing Robin, but he was always portrayed as ahead of different from the other kids, so. Yeah, I could be giving it a pass a little bit, but that's also how I view it. Not just because I'm biased to the film, but I kind of look at it and I was like, okay, no, that's why he gets to be that. That's a starting reason.
It's an explanation.
Is because as a kid, just like Bruce.
I don't agree with him knowing or how. I don't agree with how he found out. I'll just say that.
Right.
I don't know. I think my problem, I'm partially to blame because I had such high expectations. I probably hyped myself a little too much for the movie, and then there were just too many little things, little nitpicks that kind of crushed my world, I guess. I remember I walked out of the theater disappointed.
I walked out mind blown.
It was a good movie, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
It wasn't Dark Knight.
And it wasn't.
And watching it again, it wasn't as bad as I initially thought it was. It's just, I don't know.
The scene where Bane beats the shit out of him is, to me, maybe my favorite scene in all three films.
That entire fight scene. There's so many great lines in that scene.
Everything
that Bane says is an amazing quote.
And the thing about those fight scenes is they become more of a street fight. They become off more of a street fight. Bane, when Batman just screams and throws his fists up.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's just not doing what he's trained to do. Now he's just Rocky with his back against the ropes. And one thing about that scene that I don't recall ever seeing in another movie, I'm sure I've seen it a million times, but the different thing about this one that stood out to me more than in the movie was that there was no score to that scene.
Yes,
It was
I
just
noticed that too. Just you hear the water.
You hear
and
the footsteps.
Yep.
You hear Bane's, his body just moving across like the steel crates.
Mhm.
You hear every punch. The scene where he just punches his mask until he splits it.
Yep.
And just he's not fazed by anything. That whole scene, even at the end when they're walking towards each other and Bane grabs a cop and knees him.
Yeah.
He just won't take his eyes off him. And then when he starts getting Bane, and Bane's throwing these combinations and he's swinging, hitting concrete. And that whole scene, I remember the audience popped for that. When he just keeps breaking his mask and then he gives him the line that he gave him earlier, then I'll allow you to die. Like that whole scene to me.
It's crazy how much music adds to the emotion of the scene, but in times when used properly, it's so effective not having any music.
That's what I was thinking. Like,
it's
what's
crazy.
so different about this scene?
Yeah.
Like, there's no music, so everything sounds like it hits more. Like to you, no pun intended.
I don't know if this was intentional, but I kind of got flashbacks to Batman Returns when they're at the masquerade ball.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah,
Selena Kyle is dancing with Bruce Wayne.
100%.
It's very, very similar. I think it was in January 2012. I actually went to the theater to see Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
That's when they gave you
in
the
IMAX.
6 minutes.
Gave it the first 6 minutes of the film.
Real plane they use and everything.
It shot in IMAX, everything, all
Yeah.
practical effects for the most part, the majority of it. I remember people actually walked out after the scene. Like they spent $18 just to see the first 6 minutes of Dark Knight Rises. We sat through the entire Mission Impossible, but we went there to see.
Yeah, and that again, another scene. I love that scene.
That concludes the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah, it does.
I have a request for you.
Mm.
I assume you're on social media. Can you
I
give
am.
us your handles in the Bane voice?
Oh, do I have to cover up my voice like this? Or? I don't know. I feel like it's always better. I feel like that's the trick to the Bane voice is, you can do Opa _ Nikos Rikos. Or if you want to he did have something over his face, so it's not cheating. If you put Opa Nikos Rikos underneath, type it in the search engine, or die.
If you were entertained by this video, please find your way to the like and subscribe button.
Maybe you are. Maybe you are not. Subscribe anyway.